This is how a botch tattoo completely changed my outlook on life and the world. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Will. I'm a creative business owner and content creator. If you're not new here, welcome back. Happy to have you. This week I wanted to tell the story of how my second ever tattoo was completely botched, but it completely changed my outlook and life as a whole. I got my first tattoo the day after I turned 18. I was obsessed with getting tattoos. I literally was counting down the days pretty much through high school of when I could go out and get my first tattoo. It's very small, but I was stoked when I got it. And I was so excited that just a week later, I decided I wanted to get my second tattoo. Like I said, I was 18 at the time, so I was very naive and I was also very timid. And so that next weekend, I went up and visited my friends in college that was about an hour north of where I lived. And when I got there, I told them that I wanted to go get a tattoo. And so we started Googling tattoo shops in the area. Now, if you know anything about college towns, you know that there's probably a lot of tattoo shops of very low quality in the area. And so I found the one that looked the least low quality, gave them a call and asked if they did walk-ins. And they did. And so we decided to drive over there. But when we got there and I started explaining to the tattoo artist what I wanted, they got a bit confused as to how I was trying to describe this. Basically, what I wanted to get was the letters MMVII on my forearm, which stood for Man in the Moon Volume 2. It's an album by Kid Cudi. It had a huge impact on my life, and I really just wanted the tattoo. Anyways, I was explaining to her what I wanted, and they didn't really understand it, and so they called me over to the desk. And when they called me over to the desk, she opened up Microsoft Word and typed out the letters and started scrolling through fonts and asked me which one spoke to me and which one I wanted. In that moment, I should have been worried, I suppose, by the fact that this tattoo artist was using Microsoft Word to design my tattoo. But like I said, I was young and naive. This was only my second time ever getting a tattoo. And so I was afraid to make a comment or say no and just leave and, not be so impatient and get another day. But I really wanted the tattoo and I was afraid to say no. And so I picked a font that was moderately close to what I was looking for, and we went through with it. So I laid down on the chair and I'm getting tattooed, and I remember looking down at my arm halfway through this tattoo, which only took like 5 minutes, being it's so small. That's it right there. I'll put a picture on screen in a second here. But I remember looking down at my arm and seeing the tattoo, and already halfway through this tiny tattoo, noticing how bad it was and how not straight the lines were and how close the letters were together and how small it was, and already knowing it was going to turn out horrible. So fast forward like 10 minutes, it's done. They wrap it up. I pay $40, which is insanely cheap. Again, if you're familiar with tattoo shops, that a lot of tattoo shops have minimums, which means that they won't do a tattoo for less than a certain amount. And their minimum was $40, which is very low. I've gotten tattoos at places where their minimum was like $200. So $40 again should have been red flag that like this place is not good. But anyways, I get in the car, we drive back to my friend's dorm. We get inside and I take off the bandage and I look at the tattoo, and it is god awful. It is so bad. I remember literally unwrapping it, looking at it, putting my hands in my face, and laying on the floor for like 20 minutes in just despair and disbelief that I allowed myself to get this horrible tattoo. And I'll put it on screen now so you can see how bad it is. And it might not seem like incredibly horrible, but in my mind, I envisioned something very clean and straight, and the tattoo turned out to be very just unevenly distributed, weighted. The lines are too close. They're not straight. And in total, I got what I paid for, a really bad $40 tattoo. And the rest of the day, I was just in disbelief. I was like, what are my parents going to say when they see this? Because I didn't tell them that I was getting another tattoo. This is going to be horrible. This tattoo is going to be on me for the rest of my life. I'm going to regret it. It looks like shit. Like I'm going to have to get it covered up. I just thought it was so bad. And I felt this way for a few days. But as the weekend went on and as the week went on, and I started telling people the story of the tattoo, I began to like see the humor in it and began to see that like, yeah, it's a horrible tattoo, but it's such a funny story now looking back of how I was this naive 18-year-old who had, basically no experience getting tattoos, got tattooed at this sketchy college town tattoo shop and paid $40 for a tattoo artist to make the tattoo on Microsoft Word. And as I've gotten older and I've told the story more and more, I began to appreciate it more. And this is where I suppose the lesson of this story comes into play. The reason why it changed my view on life in the world as a whole was because it taught me the power of doing things and viewing them in a different light. That light being asking yourself what a story this will be in the future. Now, I'm not saying to go get a shitty tattoo for the sake of going to get a shitty tattoo. I don't recommend that. But what I am more so saying is that if you're worried about, if there's a risk you're scared to take, if there's something shitty or you're going through some sort of hardship in your life, if there's something happening that you're going through it, ask yourself what the story is going to be like in the future. That is how I've approached my life in the last, since that moment, whether it's because of that moment or not, directly or indirectly. That's how I view everything in my life. I was having a conversation with a friend, a fellow creator, earlier this week, and he asked me essentially what motivated me, how do I keep going, what motivated me to keep doing this when things weren't guaranteed or weren't working, or even into the future, what if this doesn't keep working? And I just said I always remind myself of what a cool story this will be to tell. If in 10 years, my creative business and as a creator, I double, triple, quadruple, whatever, and I have some crazy success, or if it's the opposite and everything just goes to shit in 5 years. In 20 years, I'll look back and still have an incredible story to tell. My life and everything that I do will be much more interesting to me and even to others because of the risks and the things that I did that most people wouldn't do. Whenever I think of this, I'm always reminded of a great uncle I have who in the 70s and 80s was in a touring band. And they had songs that were in movies, and they toured with some massive bands and played for these crazy crowds. But 5 years later, he was buying a house with a wife and kids and lived in a suburb of a city and lived a relatively normal life. But he had that era in his life where he was this rock star and the superstar. And that's how I view the journey that I'm on and how I view decisions that I make in my life. That, they might not work out how I planned. They might not go according to plan. They might just turn out horribly. But what a cool story it will be to tell in the future. And I think if you have that mindset and if you look at life that way, it just becomes much more enjoyable. Not that you shouldn't take things seriously, you should, but just when things go bad, look at them, take them for what they are, and just say good. I'm going to be an incredibly better person on the other side of this. I'm going to be a much more wise person. I'm going to be a much more valuable person. And goddamn, is this going to be a cool story to tell in the future. And I think if you can do that, you'll live a much more happy and positive life because you won't feel like the world's happening to you. You won't feel like all these negative things are, coming at you. You will just see things as another step in the journey, another roadblock for the hero to overcome. Not to sound cliche of make your life a movie, but really view yourself as the main character in a story that you're going to tell when you're 70, 80, 90, because really you are. You don't want to look back on your life and ask and regret not doing the things that you wanted to do because you were scared of what the outcome might do. I'd rather be 90 and broke and look back on a life of risks taken and chances and opportunities capitalized on, even if they failed, than the guy who died with $10 million in his bank account and never took a risk or never did anything that he wanted to do. So I hope that story of my really bad tattoo shot some inspiration into you to just take the jump, start viewing things as just another experience in your bucket, and you want that bucket to be full. So yeah, take a chance. Do things that you want to do. View them as just another chapter to your story. So if you guys enjoyed this week's video, as always, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below. And as always, I will see you next week. Peace.